Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Let me introduce myself. I am Zidan Ahmad Assyifa from A class of chemical. I am here to present the final exam excitement, guided by the Honorable Mr. Munir Abidin, lesson Philosophy of Science. Next, I will answer the question one by one. Number one. We know there are several theories of scientific truth, among one theories of correspondence, coherence, pragmatic, and religious. Explain the four theories by giving sample of each theory. Answer A. The correspondence theory of truth. According to this theory, truth or a state of truth is in the form of conformity between the meaning intended by an opinion and what is actually a fact. For example, if someone said that Jakarta is the capital city of the state of Indonesia, this statement is true because it corresponds to a factual object, namely Jakarta is indeed the capital city of the state of Indonesia. If someone says that the capital city of Indonesia is Buton slash Sulawesi, then that statement is not true because the object does not correspond to that statement. B. The coherence theory of truth. According to this theory, truth is not constituted by the relation between a judgment and something else, a fact or reality, but by relation between judgment himself. Truth is not formed on the relationship between this thesis and something else, namely fact or reality, but on the relationship between the decisions themselves. In other words, the truth is upheld on the relationship between the new decisions and other decisions that we already know and acknowledge the truth of beforehand. Example of coherent truth: all humans will surely die. And that is a statement or statement that is true. If Rudy is human, then the statement that Rudy will surely die is also a true statement, because the second statement is consistent with the first. C. The pragmatic theory of truth. According to this theory, the truth of something depends on how useful it is for humans in their lives. For example, the statement all iron expands when heat has pragmatic truth for blacksmiths or factories to process iron so that it becomes useful tool for human. D. Religious theory. According to this theory, truth is an absolute thing which is an unconditional doctrine based on faith in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala as the creator. For example, the holy book that Allah sent down to the Prophet Muhammad SAW, namely the Al-Quran, which is used a guide from human life without any doubt about it. According to the word of Allah in Al-Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, second verse. Question number two. List some of the means of scientific thinking you know and explain each of them. Why it is important in scientific thinking with example? Answer. There are basically three means of scientific thinking, namely language as a means of scientific thinking, mathematics as a means of scientific thinking, and statistics as a means of scientific thinking. 1. Scientific language serves as a communication tool to convey the way of thinking throughout the process of scientific thinking. Language as a verbal communication tool to convey talk or argument in scientific forum. 2. Mathematics has an important role in deductive thinking, so that is to, so that is easy to follow and easy to trace back to the truth. For example, mathematics in solving a problem is based on deduction or elaboration, not based on experience, as is found in the empirical science. 3. Statistics has an important role in inductive thinking and looking for generally accept- accepted concepts. For example, collecting data for a scientific research can be done more carefully and through using statistical techniques. Question number 3. Explain the difference between the paradigm of rationalism and empiricism in saying how science is obtained. Give example of these paradigms. Answer. Rationalism etymologically comes from the English language rationalism, and this word is rooted in Latin, namely ratio, which means reason. Then, terminologically, it is a school that understands and adheres to the principle that reason is the main source of true knowledge. Reason copies a superior position and is free or separate from sensory observation. Experience is only used to confirm the knowledge acquired by reason. Thus, the action of rationalism is centered on reason. For example, if A is greater than B is greater than C, then A is greater than C. We know that is true without looking at con concrete example. We know that the rule can be applied to map cities, nations, even though we have experienced it on trial. Meanwhile, etymologically, empirism comes from English empiricism and experience. This word is rooted in the Greek empiria and experia, which means experience it. The terminologically, the notion of empirism is a doctrine or understanding that belief that the source of all knowledge must be based on sensory experience. Ideas and only abstraction form the experience and sensory experience in the only source of knowledge. For example, how do we know that fire is hot? Then an empirist will think that fire is hot because in that he experienced it himself by touching the fire and can experience that we call heat. In other words, by using sensory tool, we will gain experience that will become our knowledge later. Thus, the understanding of rationalism is centered on reason, while the understanding of empirism is centered on experience. Question number 4. In the philosophy of science, we know three important things, namely ontology, epistemology, and axiology. Explain these three terms with example. Answer. Ontology is a part of philosophy that discusses the object of study of science, include the embodiment of all realities that may exist, explore dimensions that surround human, such as knowledge of the universe, moral and social. An example of the reality of a table is an image or idea that makes us recognize a table no matter how many models, size, and color of the table there are, it's still a table. Epistemology is the part of philosophy that discusses the source and origin of knowledge and acts as a medium for determining ways or methods to achieve science. Such methods are in the form of research activities, experiment. For example, how can we identify an object is a care? Then stroke the five senses after which it is analyzed with reason. Intellect then categorizes it into a science. Axiology is a part of philosophy that discusses the value of the usefulness of science to the essence of the value of science from all point of view. For example, if we already understand and know about a science the process with an analytical study, this axiology will discuss the benefit that can be obtained from the knowledge. Question number 5. Explain the hierarchy of science according to the philosophy of science and give example of each. In the hierarchy of knowledge, according to the philosophy of science, there are five main foundations, namely tradition, authority, trial and error, logical reasoning, and the scientific method. A. A tradition. Tradition is the last foundation is in knowledge. Something is considered right because it has been considered right long ago. For example, in area A, every time a new house is built, a Thanksgiving will be held by local residents with the hope that the house will receive a blessing. This has been a custom for a long time in the area. In this global era, one must collaborate with existing traditions and knowledge. If a tradition is compatible when associated with knowledge, then it can be applied. However, if you feel contradictory is better to focus other and avoid this type of tradition. B. Authority. Hierarchy of knowledge based on authority means something is considered true because it's said by expert. For example, students in the class will assume that the teacher says it true because they are considered expert. C. Trial and error. Trial means trying and error means wrong. Trial and error is used to get the best knowledge. After repeat experiment, it will be known where the error lies and the error found will be corrected so that in-depth knowledge is obtained. For example, scientific will test the effectiveness of vaccines in dealing with a virus. D. Logical reasoning. Logical reasoning is a systematic process that combines personal experience, intelligence, and formatting system to acquire knowledge. For example, in solving a problem, reasoning is needed both inductive and deductive reasoning. E. Scientific method. The scientific method is the top of the scientific pyramid. The scientific method includes systematic examination, empirical controlling, and critical proportion point on hypothesis. Hypothesis. For example, the result of scientific research that can be proven by data. Question number 6. Last question. Islam, we know the Islamic concept of science and the integration of religion and science. What do these both terms mean? What is the background of the appearance of these two concepts? How are the form of Islamization of science and the integration of religion and science implemented? Answer. In Islam, we know the concept of the Islamization of science and the integration of religion and science. The concept of Islamization of knowledge is trying to find knowledge that is based on Islam or in accordance with Islamic teachings. Will the integration of religion and science mean an effort to combine religion and science in order to recreate Islamic science as it was developed by Islamic scholars in ancient times? The idea of the Islamic of science was put forward because the ulama were aware of the danger of secularism and modernism that threatened Muslims. Secularism is it's an understanding that separates religion and science. Said Hussein Nasser echoed that Islamic science can be obtained through logic alone, but the heart of spirituality is also used to obtain it. Form of application of Islamization and integration of religion and science is like a teacher teaching students about the relationship between religion and science, such as about natural events that can be explained or answered with religious teachings. Okay, that's all from me. If there are many mistakes, I apologize. And if there are offenses, it's from God. Thank you and see you next time.